Hello, everyone. Hello, this is Dr. Ken Mewich, Fibromyalgia Wellness Center. And the subject today, I just came across this past week. I always try to find subjects that I think are well worth it. And this one is well worth it. Matter of fact, it may take more than one live video to go through this properly. The subject is going to be concerning something called fluoroquinolone associated disability, FQAD. FQAD. You can look that up. And what it has to do is a medication that has been given out for many years for primarily sinus infections, bronchitis for COPD patients, and simple urinary tract diseases. And this medication has been given out by the millions every year. And the side effects of this medication mimics many of the symptoms that fibromyalgia patients have, and especially mitochondrial toxicity. And for fibromyalgia patients, that's extremely important because the production of adenosine triphosphate, ATP, is one of the primary things that fibromyalgia patients have as a problem, which causes a lot of side effects, obviously. The mitochondria, I've always talked about, the ever-ready batteries of your body that actually take care of so much of the energy of the body. Everything that you can think of or not even think of is involved with the organs and the skin and the brain and so forth. There's trillions of these, and they're in each one of your cells in a body. And if the mitochondria become toxic because of this medication, this not only causes a long-term disability, but also can cause, and they found in some respects, death. So we're going to get into that in just a few moments. So why is this medication still on and being allowed to be given? Well, the FDA always falls back on the fact that they don't have enough people to work with and so forth. And in a near future, I'm going to be talking about, maybe even next live video, I'm going to be talking about a couple of instances I came across. One with a medication for fibromyalgia, Lyrica, that 1 month it was being considered as something that might be used for fibromyalgia patients through the American Fibromyalgia Association at a convention. That was in May 2007, and then the next month, all of a sudden, the FDA approved Lyrica as the drug of choice for fibromyalgia patients. Lo and behold, it's got probably about 24 different symptoms that mimic fibromyalgia, and I've talked about that. I'll go into that a little bit in more detail. But there's another one, excuse me, that comes to mind. And in, let's see, 1973, a gentleman by the name of Cyril tried to get aspartame through the FDA. And it failed 8 times because he kept on doing tests, his own tests that were tainted. And every time they literally were going to bring him up to court, the lawyer for the FDA all of a sudden quit and was hired by Cyril. This went on and on and on, including the head of the FDA that actually was going to be brought up on charges until he quit, and then he became a worker for Cyril. Unbelievable. But anyway, aspartame is the sweetener for diet drinks, the primary sweetener. And it took years, but finally, 1983, it was okayed for dry goods. 1996, it was accepted totally for a substitute sweetener with no restrictions, and yet it has 92 different side effects that have been shown and proven, and yet it's a $1 billion business. So obviously what we're dealing with here is a big money issue. Let's get back to FQAD and how it relates to fibromyalgia. In 1997 to 2010, believe it or not, there were independent studies that were done, and there were, in effect, 2,500, let's say, deaths linked to quinolone, and that's part of the fluoroquinolone actually medication. Quinolone is a shortened version. And yet nothing was done. 45,000 negative side effects were reported during that same period of time, from 1997 to 2010, and yet very little was done. In 2002, there was research done, independent research, and it was found that this medication actually caused problems with the central nervous system. In 2005, injuries were great enough in central nervous system, cardiovascular system, musculoskeletal system, causing, especially the musculoskeletal system, especially causing tendonitis. And folks, if you've taken this medication and you had a tear in your Achilles tendon, there's a good chance it's from this medication. As I got more and more research into this, I was flabbergasted. It's just, I know the FDA for many of you think it's bought and controlled by big pharma, but more and more I look into this, the more frustrated I get as far as what actually took place. That was from 2005. Now it's 2018. In 2008, the FDA finally put out a warning for their medication for tendon injury. In 2013, another 5 years went by before they decided that the medication should put a warning out for a nerve damage, even though they've known about this for years. In 2014, they found that 90%, this is an independent study done by PBS, and gosh, I hope the government doesn't take away funding, because I'll tell you, some of the things that they do are great. But back in 2014, PBS did a study on fluoroquinolone, and they found that 90% of drug reactions were not even reported from people. It's just unbelievable. Finally, in 2015, the FDA, on a 617-page document, said that the fluoroquinolone was no more effective than a placebo for those same conditions. Matter of fact, if you don't mind, I'll read it. This is exactly from the FDA, the 617. And I hate to do this, but in this case, I want to make sure I get it. Noted that fluoroquinolones are no more effective than placebos in treating sinus infections, bronchitis in those with COPD, and uncomplicated urinary tract infections. They've also noted that fluoroquinolones can cause a constellation of symptoms across the multiple body systems, and that those symptoms can lead to disability. I'm going to go over those in just a few moments. Turns out, for all the hoopla surrounding, and these are the medications: Levaquin, Cipro, Proquin, Avalox, and Factor. Those are the names of the products. And the other fluoroquinolones, that 22 million patients take them every year. Even though these things are on warning labels and so forth, you would think that the FDA would do a lot more, especially if it has that many people that are sending in reports on this. It's just heartbreaking. The drugs are often ineffective, and they can cause severe permanent disabilities in everything from nerves to the muscles to the senses to the heart. Unbelievable. The biggest question today is, why did it take so long for the FDA and medical profession to see the real side effects of this medication, this drug? In 2016, the FDA said that taking this medication, the risks actually were greater than the benefits. And that was based upon 119 medical references. Brad, that's true. It is. I hate to say it, but it's all about the money. I mean, we're going to be covering this, I think, next week also, as I go into a little bit more detail. So let me go over this here. These are the symptoms from fluoroquinolones that are the same as for fibromyalgia patients. So you have to understand that, as I've talked before, Dr. St. Amman, with his research from UCLA, found there was a genetic marker. However, maybe, just maybe, fibromyalgia is brought on by other things, because with the mitochondrial toxicity, it affects the DNA. And so if that's true, maybe, just maybe, this drug has something to do with this, even though fibromyalgia has been in existence for for, as I say, during the time of biblical times, as I mentioned. So here's, and I had to go through all of these because I use a checklist for fibromyalgia. These are the most common, not all of them. I'd be here until tomorrow reading off all of the side effects that actually have shown up with fluoroquinolones. But anyway, these are the most common: fatigue, irritability, nervousness, depression, apathy, listlessness, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, insomnia, pain, generalized morning stiffness, pain, muscles, tendons, ligaments, so forth and so on, throughout the whole body, chest. Fibromyalgia is described as a non-articular disease, but also pain in the joints, nausea, cramping, pungent urine, frequent urination, burning urination, interstitial cystitis, yeast infections. This is for genitourinary. Intense PMS and cramping. Dermatological, how about this? Various rashes with or without itching, hives, red blotches, tiny bumps and blisters. Feelings of cold or hot skin, especially palms of the feet, soles and thighs. Super sensitive to touch. Flushing, sometimes with heavy sweating. Miscellaneous symptoms. I'm sorry I have to go through this. I couldn't memorize all these. I was so frustrated. Headaches, including migraines, dizziness, vertigo, dry eyes, itching, blurred vision. One of the big things is ocular problems we're going to talk about in just a few moments. Post-nasal drip, ringing or swishing sounds. Numbness and tingling in hands, feet, face. Low-grade fevers, heightened sensitivity to sounds, photosensitivity, especially light, and morning eyes, swelling of various body parts. Let's see. Here's another one for fibromyalgia. Metabolic-wise, it causes symptomatic hypoglycemia. Fibroglycemia, we've been talking about that. This is unbelievable. And also ocular, it can cause cataracts, and various visual problems, including eye pain. This product is destructive, causes long-term disability and times death, it has been shown. I'm heartbroken to know that something like this has been on our product list of things to be offered to patients that you give trust to, and yet it's damaging to the point of multiple symptoms, conditions, of which many don't go away. They're permanent. This is, I'm heartbroken, I really am. I will read you one thing, because there are lawyers involved in this, and you need to know this because this has to do with court case. The Supreme Court ruled in 2009, it is a central premise of the Food and Drug and Cosmetic Act, FDCA, and the FDA, Food and Drug Administration's regulations that the manufacturers bear responsibility for the content of its label at all times. So they are responsible to let people know. Even though all these tests were run, there is testing that is done for a product, and it's called pre-approval and post-approval for all medications that come out. The pre-approval has to do with testing that is done by the company, and that is they follow FDA rules and regulations. But since the FDA doesn't check close enough, we're just going to say they don't have the time. And then the post-approval has to do with the after effects, the side effects. And as I mentioned to you, that there were 45,000 side effects that from 1997 to 2010, that in the same period, and nothing was even done with them, and hardly anybody knows about them. And 90% of them, as I had mentioned, hardly even come into being because the companies know how to not mention them, shall we say, because maybe it's they'll say it's 0.001% of the people that have that problem, which could be thrown in maybe some other area or whatever. So keep in mind, the products are Levaquin, Cipro, Proquin, Avalox, Factor, or Factive. I might have written that incorrectly, my apologies. But they're in the group of fluoroquinolones, Fluoroquinolone, fluoroquinolone. And if you have sinus, I, I swear, 50% of the people, at least in Arizona, if not more, especially my patients, come in with sinus infections because it's dry out here and dusty, and so and because of vegetation that starts growing. And I'm just wondering, there's usually a sinus pack, and it's rare, but it's called azithromycin. Azithromycin that can actually be used, I'm fairly sure, safely. You only take it for about 5 days and bingo, that's it. It's rare for me to have a sinus infection. I used to get them all the time, but now that I am on what's called glutathione, which is a super antioxidant, that takes care of that. I haven't been sick for years. But anyway, Brad says levofloxacin, moxifloxacin, ciprofloxacin are the generic names. Yeah, I could have mentioned those. The thing about that is that I try to simplify it. Most people have heard of Levaquin and Cipro. But I appreciate that, Brad. Thank you very, very much. Brad is the person that actually called me up and asked me about the relationship of fibromyalgia and so forth. And he's the one that put me onto this medication. And he is fighting the mitochondrial aspect and disability from taking this medication. And along with that, I researched it and I found so many people that have actual reactions, disability reactions, long-term permanent disability reactions to so many different body parts. But the point I was trying to make is that especially for fibromyalgia patients, which most of you are on some medication, my goodness, if you've taken any of these medications, part of your problem, part of your maybe big problem, is that some of the symptoms that you have are from this medication. Now, the good part about this is now that this medication has been considered as a disability medication drug. And so if you couldn't get on disability from fibromyalgia, there's a good possibility that you can get on disability from one of these medications. So blessings to all. I do hope everybody had a wonderful holiday, Mother's Day holiday, and as a word to everyone out there, please check what medications that you're taking. Please check the side effects. Very, very important. Even if it's less than 1%, check the side effects. Brad says severe ringing in the ears. Yeah, that's a real bad problem. I mentioned that. And that's similar to fibromyalgia. That's another symptom with fibromyalgia because there are so many. But the ones that I called off were not all of them that this medication is actually causes. So please check and make sure, or let us know in the clinic, and we'll see if we can help you with this also, especially if you're taking something and you already have fibromyalgia. I want to thank you so very, very much. Next week, let's just talk about the FDA and some of the things that are going on and how we might be able to deal with this. There is, I believe it's called FAERS, yes, okay, Federal Adverse Events Reporting System that you can go through the FDA. Look, it took years for the FQAD group to actually get this under, as a disability, obviously. But they were able to do it because so many people actually put the pressure on us and contact FDA. And so that's really, really important. But they said they didn't take this fluoroquinolone off the market. They just said it's not good for any of these. And if any other normal medications did not work, and it's in effect the last resort, okay, then try this. My goodness, if it causes disabilities and death, there's got to be something else that you can use instead of these. So the FDA still has not totally taken these off the market. Heaven forbid. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for listening, and I see some other messages coming out. Try to have a wonderful week. And we will continue with this and get more information as it comes along. But the reason I brought this out again is because of the similarities as far as symptoms with fibromyalgia patients. Thank you so very, very much. Dr. Ken from the Fibromyalgia Wellness Center. Please check our website. Feel free to ask questions, do whatever needs to be done. I want to thank you very, very much. Please have a wonderful day and a great week if at all possible. Bye-bye now.